So if you're listening to this, if you're hearing me now, my dear sisters, please know that there is no shame, there's no judgment. It's all about bringing value to your life when you seek psychotherapy. Our goal as therapists, my goal as a therapist, is to bring awareness to the level of struggle that you have held silently in bondage for so long. And it manifests, it's coming out in your bodies, it's coming out in your relationships, it's coming out in your self-esteem. There's so much work we can do to make you be authentically and unapologetically you. I love that I was able to put together a narrative of women's stories authentically, and then I integrated it with clinical information. Because I want people to know that there is nothing wrong with talking about hurt. There's nothing wrong with feeling misunderstood by people because they don't know your story. So my goal is to help women rewrite their stories of trauma from being a victim to being victorious.
Well, hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022 on the Well After Hours. So glad that you could join us tonight. And you know what? On 2022, we have my special first guest on the Well is so awesome because she is not only a woman, not only a doctor, not only an author, but she is a woman who walks the talk and has walked it out from 20 to 2021 into 2022. I want to welcome my returning guest, Dr. Angela Roman Clack. Dr. Clack, thank you for coming back to the Well for the new year.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Happy New Year.
It is just so exciting. I mean, I'm excited to share with the viewers this evening about all that you have done in 2021. But before we get started, for those of the viewers who weren't privileged to see you on the show before, some of the earlier shows that we had, I would like you just to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. Always a pleasure. So happy New Year, everyone. I'm Dr. Angela Roman Clack. I am a licensed psychotherapist, and I'm currently practicing in the state of PA and New Jersey. As you know, as a result of the pandemic in the last couple of years, I am working more remote. So my access is limited to telehealth right now, but it has been largely successful in meeting the needs of my clients and my community. And so I work primarily with women, particularly women of color, 25 to about 65, and women who have traditionally been told and treated differently because of either our skin color or maybe because of some other kinds of trauma that we've had. But I've always been working in the field of working with women of color and trauma.
That is so awesome. You know, in the beginning, the opening of our show tonight, we had a little, the video trailer that we were looking at. And I loved near the end what you were saying about how, our mental and emotional health really is so important and key on our physical well-being. And because of the topic that we're dealing with tonight on self-care, how important it is for us to not be selfish. Some of us were taught, you put everybody else first, and it's selfish if you put yourself first. But I believe, just like when you're on an airplane, they tell you if there's an emergency, even if you have a child with you, don't give the child that you dearly love the oxygen first. You take it and then give it to the child, because you have to be well enough to be able to care for that child. And It's the same thing for us. If we don't care for ourselves, we won't be in any condition to do anyone any good. And this journey that you have been on, I want you to actually tell people a little bit. First, I want to ask you, what was the impetus to get you started on a self-care journey?
Wow. So I'll make it short because it's long.
That's okay.
I'll get to the heart of it, is that even prior to the pandemic, I was not my healthiest self. I was working a lot. And subsequently, I realized that, but I hadn't put a lot of commitment and work into doing very much. Then here we hit 2020 and the pandemic it rises. And within 2 weeks, we all as therapists it's kind of squandering around to figure out how are we going to transition our businesses from our brick and mortar to a telehealth system if we had never done that before. Now, some therapists have already been in this space for years, but probably 90% of us hadn't. So within 2 weeks, I had to figure out how to transition out of my office and into my home. And so I've built my home office over time. But because I was working at home and because it was a pandemic, people needed us more as our mental health presence. They needed us more. And so I found myself sitting for 8-10 hours a day. And because I was sitting, I wasn't always drinking because I was seeing person after person. I felt this obligation to help people during the pandemic. And literally one day I looked down at my ankles and they were so swollen. And I thought, this can't be real. I thought it was an artifact of that day, but I realized it wasn't. And I really took a hard look at myself at that time. And I was like, you're not practicing what you're preaching. You're not taking care of yourself. I realized that I was so drained most days. I was so tired. I wasn't eating well. And just in that moment, that month, that week, so 1 year beyond where we are talking about right now, I just put myself on this journey of wellness. The other thing that happened was I was being followed by my GYN for fibroids. They were pretty bad. They weren't necessarily huge, but they were very painful. And we were at the point where it was surgery time. She says, we have done everything. You've waited as long as you can. It's time for us to do something. And I said, give me 1 more year. Give me 1 more year and let me see what I can do in a more naturopathic way. Just give me 1 more year. When I left her office, I went home. I got on YouTube. I got books. I researched how to feed my body to cure my body. And from that point on, I've only seen her maybe once for my checkup. We are not doing surgery. God willing, that will never happen. I have not had that pain. All of that has stopped. And as a result of me changing my diet, my energy in terms of the fatigue and how I'm taking care of myself, all of that changed. Yeah.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness. I am, when you said that, I'm thinking about usually that's the route they would pursue: surgery, other medications. But in a year's time, you reversed all that. What did the doctor see when you went back to her that, actually changed the route of her thinking?
Well, that's interesting because when she saw me, I had already started to lose. When she saw me, I lost 50 pounds. Because we're masked, she didn't even recognize me. And then she looked at the chart and she looked down and she goes, take your mask down. She was like, oh my God. She goes, what did you do? She goes, you really took to heart what I said. She goes, what did you do? And I told her, I said, listen, I changed all of my food. I said, I changed all my food. I got back with my trainer who I'd been with almost 6 years, 7 years before. I said, I changed everything. And she goes, so I guess we're not doing any surgery. I says, God willing, we will never do that. God will. I said, at this point, we are not. So you can do my annual visit and I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And she was like, okay, keep up the good work. If anything changes, we'll follow suit. But she goes, you look well now. I got my numbers back. I keep my blood, get my blood work done. My numbers are fine. So she didn't know what to say. She didn't even know it was me. So
oh my goodness. Well, I want to ask, did the tumor shrink, or the fibroids rather shrink, or what they just went away?
Well, what happened was they stopped growing. So because I have to get the ultrasound every time I went to her, every 6 months, she said they just stopped growing. They're there. There's no pain. And I don't want to be too graphic, but there were times where I became anemic because of them.
Yes, I
said,
yeah.
That has stopped. That and being perimenopause and moving into menopause, of course, but that even stopped. Not the perimenopause, but the anemic part, because that flow, the heaviness of that flow stopped. So I don't even have to worry about that anymore. That by itself is tremendously draining when you lose that much blood every month from fibroids. So even that stopped. So they're there. They have not grown. There's no more pain. I mean, I was in a lot of pain every day. Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing, because I have been hearing so many medical reports and different things. I mean, doctors that are saying, that really diet is so related to disease and different things,
Yes.
and that if we would change our diets, we could just get off of medication.
Yes. 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 And that's what I did. I literally took the saying food is medicine, and I live by that now. I literally did that. And I also encourage my family, my friends, and my clients, not necessarily to stop taking psychiatric medications, because I never say don't do anything you haven't been advised by your prescribing physician. But I want you to add some things to your treatment plan. I want you to eat better, because over time you may, and I do believe, change some of the trajectory of your health. You increase your longevity by living longer, by introducing new foods and things like that. But it's such a shift for people in a mindset to believe this. Like, people don't believe that food could do this, but it really can do this.
That is absolutely amazing what you just shared. My goodness, it's just taking me off course just thinking about how much, because I have changed my eating habits, really drastic. Well, I haven't eaten red meat in over 40 years. So I mean, I've been off that long, but I mean, other things, it's almost getting to the place I don't even hardly know what to eat. I'm just like eating, vegetables, And I also learned something else interesting that you probably can help me out with too, is that people felt like they had to eat meat or something to get protein. But I recently found out that the reason eating meat gives you protein is because the animals themselves eat plants.
Yes.
And that's where they get the protein from. And so that if we would eat more, plants like vegetables, natural foods, that we could actually get the protein and things that our bodies need.
Exactly. And think about when our parents were eating off the land, they literally had animals that were eating off a more healthy soil in the land. Now you don't really know what they're feeding our animals, because we don't know how well the soil, the grass they're eating. So people always say buy grass-fed beef, grass-fed, we still are not sure. We really don't know if it is, but it's better than what we see when we're injecting chickens to make them bigger, to put more meat on them, to make us think we're buying bigger bulks of food, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good food.
Exactly. And those hormones that they're giving the animals are being recycled in our bodies because we're eating. And so, and that's where information is just so important, and if you don't begin to take your self-care into your own hands, you will not get this information. You will just be constantly, you'll get sick. They'll treat your sickness and be off with you. And that's, to me, is just, that's terrible.
It is terrible. And I look at your skin, I look at my skin. Our skin is the largest organ on our body. Anything we put on it gets absorbed into our skin. Anything we put in our body also is reflected on the outside of our skin. And I remember almost 20 years ago, I had such a horrible skin condition. It was a cross between acne and eczema and rosacea. Oh. And if I had known back then what I know now, I would have treated it differently. But then I didn't know what we know now, and I treated it with a medicine from a dermatologist. And it took us almost 5 years to calm it down. It took me 5 years. And even then, I learned to listen to the doctor, because he said, and she said, because I saw two different ones, she said, you can't rush this process. Don't put any makeup on. Don't try to rush it by buying over-the-counter products. because we have to treat it from the inside out. And I was so humiliated because my skin started to almost shed itself, that I would have to walk around with a scarf around my face when I would go out. But I knew that eventually I would heal. It took us 5 years. It was a gradual progress. And she said, don't change anything. And I learned to listen to them. Don't you dare change anything. And I didn't. To this day, I follow almost the same routine. But I realize now I have to treat it from the inside out. See, we buy all these products because they're so marketed so well. And it's just masking things, and it's killing off the skin cells. I had to learn to listen to experts, learn to find credible people, and learn that anything you put on your body is absorbed in it. And what you put in is going to be reflected on the outside. And that includes your mental health. What you take in is going to be reflected in how you think.
Oh my goodness. That is just amazing. And we're learning, especially now in the pandemic. I mean, here we are in 2022. And if we don't do some new things, if we don't take better care of ourselves, which may mean we have to learn on our own. Like you said, once you heard that from the doctor, you came home and started reading things. And listen, we have the greatest information source. You can pick up your phone and say, Google, I want to know this. You can type it in on your laptop and get it. We're so information based now. We're inundated with all this information.
Yes.
Reasonable decisions.
And there's always somebody that's been where you are. There's somebody who's been where you are who will say, this is what things can work. It may not work exactly like it did for me, but at the base and core of it, here's the foods that are doing these kind of healing things. Here's are the products that you might want to stay away from. Here's how you work out. Here's how you talk to this person. Do your research. You have to do your own. You can't believe everything everybody says. And so like over the last year, I have bought more naturopathic books than you can name. I go to health food stores. I look at their books because I want to know, well, where are they buying their stuff from? Like why? And so I'll look at their books and I'm like, okay, ISBN, I'm going to get that book. So I buy all of these books. It's an essential oil. I want to know, is that something topical or ingestible? I do my research and I try to share as much with people. People are so brainwashed by Western medicine that anything that doesn't look like it came out of a pill bottle with a prescription number on it, or if it's not food that they can buy by drive-through convenience, it will feel too much like a burden. And they're like, oh, that's too much. I'm not going to do that. You're doing too much. Maybe it works. It's working.
Like they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I mean, once you find something that works for you, you stick with it. And now that so many products are becoming more plant-based in a sense, they're vegan. Everybody's saying, now even cosmetics that are vegan, and understanding what that really means, it is so important because like you said, your skin is the biggest organ on your body, and it things do penetrate, it goes through. We have pores and everything all over our bodies, and we have to take better care. And it's not always so expensive. Some things are more reasonable than you think. I know sometimes, like people say to buy organic food, it's much more expensive, than other things. But then there are some things in places where you can go where it's not, it's just a matter of how far are you willing to go. Like I saw even on your Facebook, you were putting out how you were making different, your food, your diet. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you were doing to change your food? Because people get so consumed with losing weight, and you can starve yourself and lose weight and not be healthy.
Not be healthy. And that's why a lot of times people will remark on my weight, and I won't necessarily say how much I've lost in total because they'll get fixated on the number and not my journey. So it does no good to say, wow, you lost so much weight, how you do it. And I tell you, and you're fixated on the number, and you say, well, I'll just work out more, or I'll just cut out this. And I'm like, no, you just need to change it a little bit. So one of the things I gave up 20 years ago was soda. So soda, I was addicted to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, as we know in the research, is also equivalent to a cocaine because the properties of it are so addictive. But it's the sugar in it that I was addicted to. So 20 years ago, that was the first thing I gave up before anything because of the research that I was seeing at that time. Then I tried diet sodas. We found out diet sodas are not any better. Just because you think you're losing, they're not any better. So I just gave up soda altogether and went to water. Then I found out how much sugar was in juice. So unless it's an organic juice, I'm down to water and black coffee at this point. That's it. I just decided you can't, every now and then I do some kombucha or something like that. Social media can be such an asset. I know that there are ways it cannot be. In 2020, during the pandemic, in 2021, I started following a platform on social media where a lot of the trainers, professional people who do nutrition, naturopaths, and doctors and all that, I started following them. And so I followed their Instagram, their Facebook. I did some of their webinars, go into their live rooms. And I started hearing how they started to change into their plant-based. And so you don't have to do full vegan, right? Sometimes that's too hard for people to jump to vegan. And so I just decided to introduce more plant-based. So my trainer, when I went back to him, he said, I want you to start with intermittent fasting. He said, this is something that I've been using with all my clients. Well, it really isn't that hard. It just gives you a window of time that you eat and you don't eat past. And so I usually don't eat past 6 o'clock at night because I get everything I need before 6. And that way your food has time to do what it needs to do. And you wake up the next morning and you start all over again. So we started with that. For 8 months straight, I wrote down every single thing I ate. I kept a food diary. This is how committed I was. And also because he was checking it. So he was my accountability. That book sat with me right here where I see my clients, everything I ate. And so that way I knew it wasn't cheating myself because I would keep it. And so that's how I knew that what I was doing was working, because he has the number I started with. He has the number where I am now. And so we know that it was what I'm doing through that time. And so I moved closer and closer to plant-based and less sugar. So I don't use sugars. I don't use creamers unless I'm just doing it to add a little taste to some of my coffee. But usually I've kind of got my mindset where I don't need it. But I've gone almost 85% plant-based. I do fish and I will do chicken, but I am almost 85% plant. So and plants mean, for people who, I get my protein from Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt, because yogurt has a lot of sugar in it. You got to be careful. So I get my protein from sugar, nuts, seeds, fishes. I do fish. So I akin it to like a Mediterranean diet, which are oils. So I love olive oil is probably my greatest fat. Blueberries is my best source of fruit because fruit has a lot of sugar too. So I do a lot of blueberries as my fruit if I want to get some fruit. And then the rest is greens. I do things, I eat things I have never eaten before in my life. I eat things like beets. I'll eat radish. I eat onions in my stuff. Like all of these things that you can grow from the earth is what I now eat.
That's awesome that you said that about eating things that that you never didn't really eat before, because now I'm making myself a lot of kale salads,
Yes.
And I saw where you were doing kale chips. I think you were making different things like that. I didn't know that kale could taste so good in a salad.
Right. That's right. And I even had to learn how to fix that all over, because one of the ladies that I follow, she taught me how to, be watching it, how to soften it first. And then, she said, rinse it in warm water to soften it, and then stop the cooking of it in cold water. And then you can have it as a salad. So it doesn't feel so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I never knew that. Like, this is why I said somebody is always where you've been, where you are. Somebody's there. So you got to learn how to follow people, and you want to follow people who have results, not just some kind of marketing thing, but I could see it in their body. I could see it in their skin. And, before I started this process, when I talk about how fatigued I was because I was seeing so many clients, I was getting really foggy and I was feeling really tired in my mind. Like things weren't as clear as it used to be. And then when I changed over to different foods and got my exercise in, I realized like things were coming back to me sharper. Like I was realizing like, oh, wow, my sleep is better. Like so much changed. Again, I attribute it. It's food. I don't know. I can't tell anybody else. I don't take any medicines. I take supplements, but they're more natural path, like my vitamin C, my vitamin D. I do that, but I don't take any medicines anymore. And I had hypothyroidism since I was probably 18. So I used to take thyroid medicine for 20 years. And even my blood is better in that. So I stopped, with her monitoring that. Again, I get my blood work all the time. So, but I replaced that with what I know organically treats my thyroid.
Wow. And wow, that's amazing too. And then the physical part, the exercise. I mean, I saw you doing weights and things at home.
Yes. And I hated exercise. And I tell people, listen, I don't love exercise. I just hate it less. So I don't want people to think like I love it. I do it because it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary. So I don't hate it anymore. But when the pandemic came again, we're all in the house. My husband had put together a gym almost 8 years ago, and it was sitting. We dusted off the stuff, and my trainer said, I can train you virtually. You don't have to come to me. I was like, okay, even better. So what I would do, and I tell people to do this, before the pandemic, people were giving away exercise equipment because they like to be outside or at their gym. Well, slowly, I started going on Facebook Marketplace, yard sales, and then what we had already bought, and we built that gym in my garage. And so slowly we added things, and I still stalk people yard sales to see if there's anything I can add to my gym. But I say with even vaccines or not, your immunity is built in your kitchen and in your gym. It's going to be what you eat and how you shore up your defense, your defenses
Yes.
in your body. And then physically, as women, as we get older, a lot of women are a little bit afraid of lifting weights, but I have to tell you that it shapes the composition of the body. No, it's no good to lose 50 pounds and it's just weight hanging off of you. You want to feel like statuesque. So really weight training, the resistance training is what shapes and gives your body the composition that you want. And I didn't know that either, but your posture changes. You just feel stronger. And I feel like for women who do those weight training, and I'm not talking about bodybuilders, that's not where I'm trying to get.
Right. No.
When you feel stronger in your body and you start to see the contours of your body, you start to feel stronger in your mind. And you're stronger in your mind, you start to feel more confident. You like who you are. You also show up in spaces where you feel like whether people can see what's under your clothes or not, you know what you look like. And your clothes fall differently. You feel better. You feel more confident. And so to me, that's why I say things are a mind, body, soul, spirit connection.
Definitely. And, having said that, I want to take a moment to let the viewers see, have a little glimpse into what you were doing, through 2021, some of the things that you did to arrive at where you are today and how you continue it. So I'm just going to take a break. Don't go away. We're going to just show you and so you can see some glimpses into Dr. Clack's journey through 20 and 21. We'll be right back. I know you viewers enjoy just having those glimpses into Dr. Clack's journey, the different things that she did, and actually seeing it. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, you just got more than that. I tell you, Dr. Clack, it's just so wonderful to be able to know that and to show, because it's hope for people who think they couldn't. They can look at you. I mean, even the reasoning that you're given, that is, to me, is just miraculous. To say, you know, I changed my diet, what it did for your body internally, you know, that it could stop things. You know, we pray sometimes, you know, for the Lord to do this or the Lord to do that, and he shows us there's ways, if we will take those steps, you know, to do it. What we call natural is, you know, naturopathic, you know, methods are really nature, God's way of saying, you know, you can heal yourself, you know, with so many things, instead of taking 5 different medications. And I'm all for medicine that when needed, where it's needed to help. But if you can do something, you know, that doesn't require that, why not? You know?
Exactly. And I remember buying a book, and I got to find it. This was again before. I feel like God just gave me messages a long time ago, and I just didn't heed it at that time. But there is a book called What Did Jesus Eat? It's something like that.
Yes.
So it talked about, you know, eating the way they did in the Bible. Now, of course, we don't eat exactly. We don't live in deserts and there's all that stuff. But there's something too that wheat then is different than wheat now, right? Because a lot of our stuff, our bread is bleached. So there's so many other things that if we went back to the basics, can we just go back to the basics? And that's why I know people, I agree with you. People say eating healthy is expensive. It's not that it's expensive. I think that one, there are areas that does not have immediate access to, we have food deserts and food insecurity in many of our communities. And so what's closer to many of our communities are corner stores, or if you're in like cities, the bodegos on the corner, or the trailer trucks, food trucks. It's not that organic and natural food isn't expensive, but you just have to buy more of it because it goes bad quick. That's where I find I spend more money, because if I don't eat fast enough, I have to throw it away, and I hate throwing away food. So it's that, and then the time. So if I change my way of doing that and say, well, don't buy a lot, that means I'm going to the store 2-3 times a week. So it's just, you got to make up in your mind which inconvenience you can live with, you know, and go with that until you get down a structure for yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. And I guess it also find ways to try to preserve, you know,
Yes.
try to preserve it, you know, because listen, our foreparents did. They didn't have all the conveniences and refrigeration and things that they did. They had that, you know. And one of the things that I know that they say is that as far as the food goes, is that I don't think like planting food, like some people will grow have their own vegetable gardens and tomatoes and things, which is another thing I found out about, a lot about tomatoes and things I didn't know, that had different things like lectin in it that can be a hindrance, you know, even to weight loss and to so many things I don't even want to get into, but the ground is kind of depleted because they don't give it a rest. There used to be like every 7 years there would be enough produced so that the land could take a rest for a year and replenish itself, and then you start again. But things are just not done like that. There's so much you know, money involved in it, as I call greed, economic greed, and that they just want to produce more and more and more, and that's what you know, depletes the soil of a lot of the nutrients for the plants. But if you're growing your own food, you can, you know, put in the soil, you know, back into it what you know you need. So that's why, you know, it's good to the organic, I would imagine, you know.
Yes. I love farmers markets. Now, that's not something I would do before, but I will go to farmers markets. I do go to produce markets that have bulk vegetables and things like that. You know, again, they're not always in the most convenient areas, but, you know, if you do 50% more than you did before, you're trying. You know, it's a start.
And that little small steps can bring on small changes that can give you great big results. So
Right. That's right.
that's
Yes.
important. Just like I remember, my sister was telling me one time, I didn't get to go, but they actually went on a church trip where they actually can pick their own vegetables at a
Yes.
farm. It was a certain trip that they had organized. There are certain farmers that
Mhm.
you can come and pick, and I think about that when I think about how some farmers were actually being paid to throw food away. I said, how can people go hungry in this
Yes.
country and they're throwing food away?
Yes. Yes. There's a whole thing politically with farmers this day. And I hope that that changes. Yes.
To me, that is just that's reckless. I can't imagine it. And people say, "Oh, because of this, people are starving." There's something that's not being managed right.
Right. That's
There's
exactly
something
right.
that's just not being managed right. It doesn't make sense. And and that's why we have to be so involved. And I think about it. When we were kids, what they called peasant food was actually healthy food.
Yes.
we were eating a
Right.
lot of we were eating a lot of beans and things with protein, and we weren't
Yes.
drinking regular cow's milk. We were drinking somewhat powdered milk.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it actually found out that it was healthier. Things were done so differently back then that we didn't
Hmm.
have a lot of the colds and the sickness that kids had. We were laughing about that the other day. I said, yeah, my mother used to give us cod liver oil, mineral oil, milk of magnesia, and all those things that they had, because we didn't have health care like as we know it now.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
it
So
was
right. So
really,
medicine, big pharma rules the world. Right? If
it's
we couldn't sell medicine, that's a probably $1 trillion business. And I
yes.
was thinking the other day, sometimes I said, I haven't had a cold. I haven't had a cold and a virus like that in probably 4 or 5 years. I think I haven't had a cold in 5 years. I think, I haven't had the flu, thank God, in even longer than that. And I'm just experimenting this year just to see again, because I know then it's the food and it's my vitamins that I'm taking, with this. People have to be careful. The weather keeps changing,
Yes.
we're in a winter season still, and we have yet to get through, the pandemic as more and more changes in our atmosphere. But we can control what's around us, what we put in us.
Yes. Like I said, you're right. There are some things we can't control, but there are other things that we can control.
Yeah.
And if we take control of those things, we'll be better off for it.
Yes.
So, I
Absolutely.
mean, I think that's just, and your journey, like I said, has just been amazing. It's one that we can not only hear, but see.
Yeah.
And
You know what? I tell you this, the reason why I share it is because I want the accountability. If I don't want someone in 10 years or 2 years or 2 months to say, oh, I thought you were doing such and such, what happened? So if I put it out there publicly, then I have a witness.
Mhm.
People can witness my journey. I can inspire and encourage others, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not a fitness professional. I'm a professional who uses fitness. There's a difference. If I can do it, other people can do it. And then if any way I can be of help to other people, I will. But really, largely, I put it out there publicly to be accountable so that people will say, no, I watched her. That wasn't surgery. That wasn't starvation. That wasn't whatever people think. No, I watched her do this. And I know she said it was this, this, and this. And if I can just do some of that, I'm probably going to get similar results. It's not, you don't need to follow celebrities for all of these quick fixes, because they don't stay, they don't work. I've tried those too. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I was just thinking as you were speaking about the kind of emotional quotient in it, what it does for you emotionally and psychologically,
Mm,
as you said, like you don't have to, you don't tell people to get off of medicine, that they may be taking for different, things, psychotherapies or something. But if it's making you better, you can work along with your medical practitioner to begin to maybe see
yes,
why you can't stop start gradually weaning off of
yes,
certain things too. People whether it's diabetes, before it gets to a certain thing, don't think just because you've been diagnosed with it that it can't be reverted, because a lot of times it can be reversed if we would
it can.
change if we would
Absolutely.
change.
You
Yeah.
got it. You got it. And there are depression and anxiety can be also managed with food. Therapy is the talk about what's going on. The therapist cannot change your physiology. You have to do the things to do that. We help you change and shift the way that you're thinking about things and the way you process things. However, again, what you put in your body is going to make a difference in how healthy your brain is. The healthier your brain, the healthier your thoughts. There is no other formula, period. The healthier the brain, the healthier your thoughts, and then the quality of your life will be at the healthiest it can be.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome right there. My goodness. I tell you, well, other than hearing your voice, seeing your pictures, and what would excite the viewers more or convince them or encourage them, do you have any kind of final words that you'd like to say to any sister or brother, for that matter? It could be a brother, a sister, but particularly, to say to them, to encourage them to, and I encourage you to, go to Dr. Clack's Facebook pages. She's on YouTube. She has a YouTube channel, to even follow her, to hear all about what she's saying, because people think sometimes it's just all about being on the couch, but there are other ways to transform, your thinking, and the spiritual part. I also want to point out that, Dr. Clack is a woman of faith as well. And that is incorporated in her journey. It took her faith to actually, get through it. It's one thing. You can have a will, but you have to have your faith, and higher and a higher reserve than just you and what you're trying to do. And maybe you can kind of, close kind of on that note, because I didn't bring out that spiritual aspect, but I know faith and prayer played a lot in the journey.
Yeah. And I think that for me, prayer is what got me through those days that I just wanted to quit. There are many days I still wake up that I'm like, you got to walk today, or you got to do, and I just don't feel like it. And one of the things I had to learn is that it ain't about feelings. Your feelings are not facts. If you are over the weight limit that you want to be, if you're more sad than you want to be, if you're more anxious than you should be, your feelings will talk you out of the work. So if the first thing you do when you open your eyes is to thank God for allowing you to see yet another day, and your limbs are moving and you can breathe, I think it's an insult to God that you don't take care of your temple. That's the other thing I learned. Like, how insulting is it for God to give us another day every day, to have another breath in our life, when many people we know have passed during the pandemic, and not to take care of it, particularly if He has a vision and mission for your life. You have to be healthy. You can't travel and preach the word or teach the word, or even get on live and teach and talk. You can't if you're not well. If He's using you to teach wellness, you have to be well. And so I kept telling myself that too. And one day I sat down and wrote some scriptures on wellness to keep that in the front of my mind too, because that's everything we need is in the word. Everything. What you eat, how you eat, all of that, how you think as a man thinketh, all of it is in the word. And that had to be part of my process as well. So that too is in terms of faith, the word, because I wanted it to be real, and it needed to be a part of every part of my life, and that's spirit, mind, body, and soul. So be encouraged. I didn't do it overnight. There were days where I had setbacks, but it just set me up for the next day. So don't give up if you feel like one day you fall off. Make things habits, new habits. Don't, whatever that things people say about it takes 21 days to make it. Forget that. Because it could be 41 days for some people. It could be 14 days for some people. But the goal is to create new habits and to maintain them with consistency. If you can get a habit down in 14 days, then you didn't need 21. You got it. If you need 61, so be it. Don't beat yourself up. You did it. You got it. Move with it. But be encouraged. Take one day at a time.
Wow. That is a great way to close this on. Thank you so much. I tell you, your appearance here on the well is always exciting. It's always informative, and I just enjoy you thoroughly. Thank you so much. I know the viewers were blessed. I was blessed. I'm taking some notes from this and going to use them too. So
Yes.
I thank God for that. Oh, and
You're welcome.
before we close out, I'm going to ask you to close us out with prayer,
Mhm.
and thank you again. And I'll be looking over my calendar for when I can get you
Okay.
back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have me back in the spring. That's my next makeover. It's like what this, spring is always like what's fresh and new. And then hopefully I can bring to the community what has been fresh and new. So
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I look forward to it. But thank you, viewers, for
you're
being with
welcome.
us. And we're just going to close out in prayer and pray that even you in 2022,
Mhm.
there are things for you to do, and you can do them so much better. If you are caring for yourself, start somewhere, even small way. Make yourself a priority. It's not wrong and it's not selfish. So thank you, Dr. Clack. We'll
You're
let you.
welcome. You're very welcome. All right. Father God, I just thank you for this opportunity. Always, I thank you. There's so much that I want to share with our community. There's so much that I want to say to encourage my brother, my sister, the families, and the listeners today. And Lord, I just want them to know that I took one step. And Lord, they can do the same thing. That there are many days that I woke up and I just thank God that you allowed me to see another day, to lift a weight, to walk outside, to be one with your nature. And that's what I did. I walked outside and I looked around me and I saw the trees and I saw the leaves changing colors. I said, look at the presence of God. So, Lord, I just pray right now that I encourage each and every one who's listening or who will catch the replay that 2022 and on, Lord, will be their years to live, to flourish, to grow in mental, physical, spiritual, and relational wellness. Follow the word of God. Follow the leading and the prompting of the Holy Spirit, because, Lord, you did it for me, and I know you do it for them.
Yes.
In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much. And it is my prayer and my wish for you to have a absolutely
You.
abundant, fabulous 2022. And you are certainly off to a awesome start and
You.
continuing on. And I know as the scriptures say, he that hath begun a good work in you shall perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. And I'm looking forward to that.
Amen.
And viewers, thank you so much for joining us on the well. We'll be looking for you the next time, same place. And until then, listen, stay well, stay safe, and take care of yourselves. And we'll see you next time at the well. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you again.